What's up guys, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about a standard tier list. I think a lot of people want to kind of know essentially what's going on in the standard world. Obviously with the introduction of set 7, I think it's a really good time to do it, and it's just before Worlds. So this is pretty much the tier list of the decks that you will see at Worlds, S ranking being probably the best decks in the format, the ones that will reach the top tables. A will be, you know, the one step down. B is like your good benchmark decks. C, you know, you see at locals, and then D needs a little bit more support. So yeah, if you guys haven't checked already, Fuzzy has a new website. Go to vg-paradox.com. It is an insane website. Make sure you guys go check it out. Bookmark it. It's going to be a resource that you guys will need for times to come. It is ridiculously how good that is. Pokemon has it for limitless TCG, and this is the start of something big. So make sure you get onto that, bookmark it, and yeah, let's talk about Standard. Standard at the moment is in a very good spot. I think with new decks coming through, it's, how should I say, it's in a good spot. So let's start with a few of these. We'll probably jump around because I think this is sorted by nation. So it gets very dry if we're just, you know, talking about Dragon Empire and blah, blah, blah. So I'm just going to, you know, pick out a few decks randomly at a time and then essentially rank them. So we're going to start with Bavsagra. I think Bavsagra in itself is a really good benchmark deck. Obviously, you know, we can probably shift these around as we go, but I think Bavsagra is a really good start. If you are a new player, you need a good deck to play. It's really strong. I think with the new edition of the Maiden PR that we got in the set 7 sneak, that grade 1 is actually insane. Allows you to search for Trick Moon, buffs this deck a lot. So Bavsagra is a very good benchmark deck. Overlord. I think Overlord is one of the best decks in the format. Wait, why are there two Overlords? So this is just normal Overlord? Alright, so if it's normal Overlord, we'll put it in C. So the End is one of the best decks in the format, with the new PR being released as, I think it's like a booster campaign for set 7. I think this is one of the best decks. It's really strong, you know, straight free essentially restand, because the PR essentially becomes a +2, which is actually nuts. So yeah, I definitely would like to see, actually probably will see a lot of Overlords at Worlds. This deck is very strong at the moment. Then let's talk about Drajeweled. Drajeweled, it got released with the new Drajeweled grade 3 with the Rockogore grade 2, but it doesn't really do too much. I think it's a good deck to play at locals. Nothing more than that, unfortunately. I think the deck is just alright. Greedon. I think Greedon, I don't know, maybe it goes low A tier. There's been a lot of Greedon tops recently, and none of them run the PR, which I think, you know, there are two types of builds, one with the PR and then one that is like, you know, super Unga Bunga Vanguard centric, which is something that I think Minhyu ended up building for his deck for Vietnam and Singapore, and it does well because, you know, a really strong center lane with restand, and then it's pretty annoying trying to deal with the crit grade 3 as well. So I think low A. I think it's a deck that if you bring to Worlds this year, you may see a top, and I think it's a really solid deck in the right hands with the right people. Bastion grade 3, it's just alright. Good benchmark deck. Same with the Prime. Prime, I think, is past its time. I think a lot of other decks can kind of cope with it, but sometimes if you just go first and high roll, you might just steal games. So I think the deck itself, good solid benchmark deck. Bruce. I think Bruce is the same. I think Bruce is, it can win games, but I wouldn't, I don't know. Do I put it in A? Maybe low A or high B. But I think Bavsagra, if it's like this, then I'd put it like here somewhere. Bruce is a pretty solid deck. Both grade 3 and grade 4. I think both decks are really good with the addition of Julian. Yeah, I think it's a super strong deck. I wouldn't rank it amongst like Dote or some of the other ones that we'll see later in this, you know, tier list, but it's still a solid deck. You still see people playing it, and it's going to get support in set 9. So at the moment, it's good where it is. It's going to get better as time goes. Tegria. I think Tegria is pretty solid. It is a deck that if I brought it to BCS, I think it's a consistent deck to bring. Weird that it's Dark Tegria, so maybe this is like Dark Tegria in the Ride line. Dark Tegria in the Ride line probably not, but White Tegria in the Ride line, yeah. But I think both of them essentially do the same thing. They will have access to New Order in set 8, but until then, I think maybe it's like highest of B, lowest of A. I wouldn't put it in A because I think there are other decks that kind of sit in A. The start as a Ride line, yeah, I'm just gonna put that there. Youthberk. Youthberk is one of the best decks in the format at the moment. The deck is really expensive and the results show why. In Japan, it is one of the top 3 decks that you'd bring to Vanguard Deluxe. This deck is very, very strong. Definitely a strong contender for Worlds. We will probably see a lot of conversion going to top 8 at Worlds with Youthberk, but not to say it's unbeatable. And I say the same for Eva. Eva is also one of the best decks at the moment. It can cope with nearly every deck. It has a slow start, but I think as the deck, or as the game goes, the deck gets stronger and stronger because the deck gets compressed. You know, you start hitting a bunch of triggers. You can start searching for your PG. You can return PGs, return Obstigate. It has a really good high shield count value with the Obstigates being 10k shield. The deck is really good. And with Combine Rusher, you're able to call out and rush early. Very, very good deck. Jumping back to some of the ones previously. So Jeva is... it's missing a lot. In comparison to some of the other decks that got released in set 7, I think Jeva needs a little bit more. I think with set 9, it probably will see a bit more play. Hopefully there's a bit more support in that set, but at the moment, yeah, definitely not a deck that I would bring to BCS. Talking about Nirvana though, normal Nirvana, or Maha Nirvana, I think this is really good. This deck is a good benchmark deck, but I think some of the other decks outclass it at the moment because of the speed. Like for example, these 3 are much quicker than Maha Nirvana, but it's still a solid strong deck. Hexa Orb. As much as I want to say Hexa Orb is a good benchmark deck, I think it's high C, low B. I don't know. There's been tops here and there, but I don't know. Not enough people play it, and I think it's missing something. I don't know what that is. It's missing something. Something to push it from C to low B, but I think the deck is going in the right direction. It just needs maybe 1 or 2 more cards to make the deck really good. PBO, I think PBO's alright, but I wouldn't bring it to a BCS. It was good previously, and I think with the introduction of the new PRs that got revealed, I think yesterday, I think PBO will jump from like C to B. Don't know if it jumps to A, but it's a pretty solid deck. So I'm gonna leave it in C somewhere here. We can shift this around afterwards. So yeah, normal PBD, nah, it's not that great. PBO just outclasses it. MLB with the new PR is good, but at the moment it needs help. So I think I'm gonna put it there. Chaos, I think Chaos is the same, but I think Chaos is like at the top here. I think it's missing just a little bit more to push it up, but I think, yeah, I think if you are creating cards, you have to be very careful with how you incorporate with Chaos because it can get out of control really quick. Eugene, with Oswald, I think it's a locals deck, but otherwise, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. Tamayura though, I think Tamayura is pretty solid, but whether I put it as a benchmark deck, I'm not sure. With the new PR, it's good, but at the moment we don't have the PR yet until set 8. So I think I'm just gonna put it here as a locals deck, maybe towards the top end because it can quickly change from C to B with the new PR. Barrow Magnus. I think Barrow Magnus is a very good benchmark deck. Can steal games really quick if you're not careful. So I think if you high roll super early, you just steamroll people out of the game and you might just win that way. I think as the game goes on, it gets really hard to kill because other decks essentially farm up to your tempo. So yeah, Barrow Magnus is, you know, your good benchmark deck. I think that's where it is at the moment. Let's look at Gravidia. I think Gravidia at the moment is an A tier deck. It was an S tier deck before, but I think these three have mechanisms to be able to deal with it. Obstigate, for example, it just kind of sits on double Obstigate, and then your Baku Burrito don't get crit. It has essentially mechanics to be able to fire in perfect guards. I think Gravidia has served its time, but it's still a solid deck. Like, you can blast 5, hit a bunch of triggers, and then just kill your opponent. It's like not the end of the world. So I think Gravidia itself is pretty solid. Jumping to some of the other decks, I think Flagberg is a very solid deck. Shelling Cannon with Arix. Arix is good too. I think the deck has a lot going for it. We will probably see a lot of Flagberg at Worlds. So yeah, that's a deck there. And then Pure Light's good. I think Pure Light is like one of the better grade 4 decks. And yeah, I think it outclasses a lot of some of the other decks that you see in the B tier. It can choke your opponent out of resources, and yeah, that's how it wins its games. Alright, moving on to some of the other decks. So grade 3 Seraph, not really existent. I think the grade 4 just outclasses it, so that kind of goes in B. Orphist, I think Orphist Regus is actually pretty strong. I think I don't want to put it as like a benchmark deck. I think it's much better than a benchmark deck. So I think it maybe goes in low A. The deck itself has really strong multi-attacks. The longer the game goes, the deck actually gets super strong and the power gets out of control. So I think Orphist Regus is a really strong deck. Its counterpart for grade 3 though, I think it's just alright. It doesn't have like an on attack, which abuses the grade 3. So I think itself, like the grade 3 itself is just kind of okay. So I think that kind of goes there. And then we have Magnolia. Magnolia grade 3 is actually pretty good. I think Magnolia grade 3 is a pretty high benchmark deck, especially with Serol and the Alpaca. I think Magnolia itself sees play. It might see a bit more play, maybe low A, but I think putting it as the highest of the benchmark is pretty solid. Looking at like heroes, so Hero got a really good buff in set 8, I believe, but I don't think it's available for Worlds, so it kind of goes in the local section. Same with Welstra. I think Welstra with the new grade 2 that got revealed on Thursday makes this deck much better. So I think at the moment it just kind of goes here. Same with Roroa. I think Leonorn kind of goes here as well. Actually, no, Leonorn I think is a benchmark deck. It got the Resonance Dragon. I think the Resonance Dragon is the card that makes this deck a benchmark deck. Grave Zorga. I think Grave Zorga, I think it's the highest here, but not much more than that, I don't think. I think it needs a bit more to kind of push it up to like a BCS level deck, but you can still bring this to BCS and top because, you know, as you can see, there's been tops of Red Zorga, but yeah, nothing too insane with the deck that makes it, you know, a consistently topping deck at BCS. Alright, just zooming out a bit because I didn't realize how many decks there were. So Nirvana itself, as a grade 3 oriented deck, doesn't really see much play. So I'm just going to put like the ones that don't see much play kind of sitting here. Blue Zorga's not bad. I think Blue Zorga kind of sits with Red Zorga. Both of those decks are super solid. But I don't think they are decks that, unless you are like Wolfren or someone who dedicates time to the deck and learns matchups, then it brings it from high B to low A. So those ones at like the top of B can be considered as low A as well. Clarissa goes at the benchmark deck. The powerful deck's not that great, so I'm just gonna put that here. Grade 3 Kari as well. Alestial is alright as a locals deck, I think. Kari is good. I think Kari is like one of the decks that even now, it's a solid deck, but I think with the transition of Lyrical, Kari is not that seen anymore. So maybe it goes at the top of B, but then there are other Lyrical decks that outclass it. Magnolia Elder. Now, we don't have the Inlet Magnolia unban yet, so at the moment it just kind of goes here. Magnolia losing Inlet hit it a lot, but I think maybe, yeah, I'm just gonna leave it here. I think there were some decks though that I guess abused the card that like returns from the drop zone and attack 6 times. But I think the losing of Inlet allows restricts the deck from having an insane hand size. Maybe I'll put it at the low of B. It's a benchmark deck, so I think it's not bad. Fortier needs work. Willista needs work. Laronarol, good benchmark deck. Still can steal games and stuff like that. All of Token Rambu, nothing was really impactful from that set, so I think it just kind of goes here. Same with the Ragnarok stuff. Yeah, it didn't really get that much support, unfortunately. So it doesn't make that big of an impact. And then Felty kind of goes with the same. Didn't really do too much. Alright, now Shaman King. So Yo was in A, but then everything got better and then now it's in B. But I think it's like high B, somewhere here. Yeah, so somewhere there. So I think a lot of people kind of uncovered what it does. So I think kind of moves there. If it was first released without all the other stuff, I think it'd be like A tier, but I think everyone just kind of knows what Yo does, which makes it, you know, a bit more predictable on how to, I guess, play against it. But you can still steal games. The OT is insane. Pings are damage, and yeah, you could just win games like that. I think all the other Shaman ones, like maybe except for Tauren, I think, you know, pretty alright deck. All the other ones just kind of sit here. Lizard is okay. I'll put it in. I'll give it a bit of respect. But all the other ones, nah, not really. All right, so Michu is pretty solid on a local level. Hazaret's just okay. Actually, Michu is it better than Loro? Yeah, I'll leave it there. Put it a bit of respect on it. Kyoka, good at locals. Mediel, I think, needs work. This girl needs a bit of work. And Lutetia. I think Lutetia is one of the best decks at the moment. I think these 4 decks are 4 really good contenders for Worlds. I think if you are going to World, definitely consider these 4 decks. Also consider A tier. I think these decks are really, really good. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the standard tier list. Just a bit of a summary. This is a rough guideline. We can probably rearrange some of them being higher than the others, but I'm just gonna class them. There's just too many ride lines, so we're just gonna put them in the classes that they kind of stand in. So at the moment, the best decks in the format, I think, are Overlord, Youthberk, Eva, and Lutetia. These 4 are really strong. And then following that, Gravidia is still, you know, dealing damage. Hasn't really gotten that much extra support, but I think the mechanic of the deck is just really strong. Greedon's there, Flagberg's there. Prison, for those people who know how to play Prison. And then Orphus Regus, I think, is really good. Not far from that is Kari, the Zorgas, Shaman King, Magnolia, maybe a bit of Tegria, Bavsagra, and like all the other ones here. Pretty much coming from like the previous meta. And then all the other ones are just kind of in their space. This section here needs a bit of work, but in due time they will get it. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the standard tier list. I hope you guys found this informative. If you guys did, hit a like, comment down below what you guys think of the tier list. Obviously, this is a rough guideline. So from my testing or what I've tested so far, this is what I've come up with. Obviously, some of these can jiggle around. So if you guys have any suggestions on what to move around, do feel free to do so. I know a lot of Zorga players kind of want to move this up to A and stuff like that. Like I said, some of the ones in high B can be classed as low A, but I want to just kind of give a definitive line of what I would expect at Worlds. So, you know, definitely expect all the S, definitely expect all the A. You know, if you're bringing Bs, it will be there. So yeah, hit the subscribe button and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.